As Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will wish to join me in paying tribute to the soldiers who've died in Afghanistan in the last week. From 40 Commando Royal Marines, Corporal Stephen Curley and Marine Scott Taylor. From the 4th Regiment Royal Artillery, Gunner Zach Cusack. These were men of outstanding courage, of skill and of selflessness. We must never forget their sacrifice. Mr. Speaker, the House would also be alarmed and shocked by the events unfolding in Cumbria today. Police were called to Whitehaven at 10:35 this morning after shots were fired by a man, and I regret to report that a number of people have been shot and that at least 5 people have died. I can confirm that the body of a gunman has been found by the police. The Chief Constable of Cumbria is working closely with other forces and other emergency services to ensure a coordinated response to these rapidly moving events. The government will do everything it possibly can to help the local community and those affected and to keep the House informed. A full statement will be made to Parliament tomorrow. When lives and communities are suddenly shattered in this way, our thoughts should be with all those caught up in these tragic events, especially the families and the friends of those killed or injured.
Mr. Douglas Carswell.
Mr. Speaker, all parties in this House will welcome the Coalition's proposals to eliminate quangos and to shift power away from unelected functionaries to elected representatives. The biggest quango of the lot is, of course, the other place, a legislative chamber largely appointed by the executive. Will my right honourable friend confirm that he will bring forward proposals in the next 12 months to make all our lawmakers accountable through the ballot box?
Well, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for asking that question. I don't always give him... I don't always give him answers that make him happy, but this time I can. There will be a draft motion by December which the House can vote on. I've always supported a predominantly elected House of Lords. I'm delighted that agreement has been reached on the coalition programme. I can already hear what a challenge around the House it is going to be to achieve the consensus that we need, but I hope that after all the promises of reform, this time we can move towards a predominantly elected second chamber.
Harriet Harman.
Acting Leader of the Labour Party.
Mr. Speaker, can I join the Prime Minister in paying tribute to Corporal Stephen Curley and Marine Scott Taylor from 40 Commando Royal Marines and to Gunner Zach Cusack from 4th Regiment Royal Artillery. As the Prime Minister said, they were brave men who died in the service of our country. We must never forget the sacrifice they made. And can I strongly support what the Prime Minister has said about the dreadful shootings in Cumbria? We offer our deepest sympathies to the families of those who've been killed and our strong support for the police, the emergency services and the local communities in Cumbria. Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Prime Minister about the Israeli interception of the Gaza flotilla? I'm sure he agrees that this is a tragic loss of life which has angered the Palestinians and dismayed friends of Israel too. Can he tell the House what is the current position of the British nationals who've been detained by the Israelis? And will he tell us how the government can contribute to international efforts to make the Israelis recognise that the blockade of Gaza is prolonging the suffering of the Palestinians and making peace in the Middle East even harder to achieve? This blockade must end.
Can I thank the Right Honourable Lady for what she said about our troops and also for raising the issue of these events off the coast of Gaza. I mean, what has happened is completely unacceptable. We should be clear about that, and we should also deplore the loss of life. And indeed, I've spoken to the Prime Minister of Turkey to extend our condolences for the Turkish citizens who've been lost. We should do everything we can to make sure this doesn't happen again, and I stressed this point in a conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. In terms of our specific questions, in terms of British nationals, there are 42 British nationals caught up in this. I believe that around 37 of them have had consular access and that all of them will be coming home, and we need to make sure they are reunited with their families as fast as possible. She also raised the issue of international efforts to get the blockade open. As she knows, and as the Shadow Foreign Secretary will know, we should do everything we can through the United Nations, where Resolution 1860 is absolutely clear about the need to end the blockade and to open up Gaza. And what I would say, in addition, is this, that friends of Israel, and I count myself a friend of Israel, should be saying to the Israelis that the blockade actually strengthens Hamas's grip on the economy and on Gaza, and it's in their own interest to lift it and to allow these vital supplies to get through.
Harriet Harman.
I thank him for that answer, and I know we'll be hearing further from the Foreign Secretary in a statement immediately after these questions. Can he give me an answer to another important issue, one that I raised with him last Tuesday, about prosecuting rape? We know that it's often only after many rapes that a defendant is finally brought to court, and it's only at that point, often, when previous victims find the courage to come forward. By making rape defendants anonymous, he's going to make it harder to bring rapists to justice.
Well, I know the Right Honourable Lady cares very deeply about this issue, as do I, and the fact that rape convictions are so low in this country is a scandal, and we need to improve on that. That means working with the police and also doing more to help rape victims, including backing rape crisis centres. On the issue of anonymity, I sat on the Home Affairs Select Committee that examined this issue. It was, of course, a committee in the last Parliament dominated by Labour members, very ably chaired by Chris Mullin. We came to the conclusion that there was a case for saying that between arrest and charge there was a case for anonymity. The coalition agreement mentions this issue of anonymity, and we will, of course, be bringing forward proposals which the House can then examine and debate. But I think there is a case for this to happen. But I understand what she says, that it is important that the publicity around a case can help bring other people who have been raped forward. So I understand her case, but I think this does represent a good way forward.
Harriet Harman.
Well, I welcome his recognition of that first point, but doesn't he also recognise that to single out rape, which is what he's proposing to do, to single out rape defendants sends a very powerful message to juries in rape cases that the rape victim is not to be believed, and it sends a devastating message to rape victims that uniquely of all victims, they are not to be believed.
Well, I don't accept that. I mean, the Home Affairs Select Committee looked at this very carefully and came to the conclusion that in this case there was a case for extending anonymity, also because in rape cases, obviously, those that have been raped have anonymity themselves, and that was the case for this limited extension. But we will be bringing forward proposals that can be debated and discussed in the House of Commons. We all want the same thing, which is to increase the number of successful rape prosecutions and to send more rapists to jail. That's what this is about.
Harriet Harman.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, but I think that is a disappointing answer because he shows no understanding of the progress that's been made on prosecuting rape, and he doesn't realise how seriously this will turn the clock back. Can I turn to another area where I believe the government should reconsider, and that's the married man's tax allowance. It would only go to 1 in 3 married couples. It would cost £500 million a year. Can you tell the House how that would contribute to cutting the deficit?
Well, I'm an unashamed supporter of families and supporters of marriage. And I simply don't understand why so many other European countries, and I often remember being lectured from the other side of the House about how we should follow European examples, so many other European countries recognise marriage in the tax system, and yet we don't. So this is an issue I believe we should bring forward proposals to recognise marriage in the tax system. It's proposals that in our happy coalition they will have the right to abstain on, I'm happy to say. But I support marriage, and I say we support so many other things in the tax system, including Christmas parties and parking your bicycle at work. Why don't we recognise marriage?
Harriet Harman.
The Prime Minister knows that it will not keep couples together. He knows that. He's just hoping that it will keep his backbenchers on side. But he hasn't answered the question, is how does this planned tax cut help reduce the deficit?
If we are going to get control of public spending in the long term in this country, we should actually be targeting the causes of higher spending. And one of the causes of higher spending is family breakdown. So I think we should do far more to recognise the importance of families, the importance of commitment and the importance of marriage. And let me just say this. any recognition of marriage we put in the tax system will also be recognition of civil partnerships, because commitment is important whether you're straight or you're gay.
Harriet Harman.
Last question.
So he's seriously saying he expects us to believe that he thinks that a £3 a week tax break